What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, talking about some free agent targets for Atlanta now that minicamp is firmly in the rearview mirror. We will not see this team until training camp gets underway, but there are always some mid-June, early July-ish signings. So I wanted to run through some notable names still out there, talk about whether or not it makes sense for Atlanta, and we'll just dive into a bunch of free agent targets for the Falcons following minicamp. Now, before we jump into our first name, during our Monday meeting at Chat Sports, the bosses put out benchmarks for like numbers for all of our team channels, and for the Falcons, they put at 330 likes. Help us prove our bosses wrong. They are always naysayers when it comes to some of these smaller channels here at Chat Sports. They just ride the coattails of the Raiders report or the Cowboys report, but I want to show them that Falcons Today means business. So let's hit that like button and get to 330 likes. Now, the first player we're going to talk about on today's show is someone who we are all very familiar with. It is the former Indianapolis Colts edge rusher, Yannick Ngakoue. So, Ngakoue has been around the league for quite some time. He is entering his 8th season in the NFL. And you can see that he has been a very productive pass rusher through 7 seasons so far. As a rookie, he posted eight sacks with the Jags. He kind of had a breakout season, that 2017 season for Jacksonville, where they were just a quarter away from going to the Super Bowl. Then 9.5 sacks, 8 sacks, and then he starts to live out of a suitcase, right? 8 sacks in 2020 between Minnesota and Baltimore. Then in 2021, he goes to Vegas and puts up 10 sacks. And last year in Indy, he puts up 9.5 sacks. Now, a recent report came out that Ngakoue is looking for somewhere in the range of $8 to $10 million. I don't think Atlanta is dying to sign Ngakoue because they've already made a lot of additions so far on defense. But if that number drops, maybe Terry Fontenot wasn't interested in signing him for $10 million. But at $6-7 million, he can see the value in adding someone who just comes off an 8+ sack season. So they've already made a flurry of moves on the defensive line. I don't think Ngakoue or any other edge rusher is super high on his priority list. But again, everyone has their price. And if that number drops a little bit, maybe Fontenot does pick up the phone and go, now we're interested, let's play ball. Now, the second player on the edge spot we're going to talk about is Jadeveon Clowney, the former first overall pick. It's coming off a down-ish season with the Browns last year. You can see he only put up 2 sacks in 12 games. Just a sour ending, if you will, up in Cleveland. Was a healthy scratch the last game of the season. Started passing blame on the defensive coaching staff and a little bit of Myles Garrett, sort of. It was kind of awkward and bizarre. But the season prior to that, he put up 9 sacks his first year with Cleveland. Now, he's always been a better run stopper than true pass rusher. And Atlanta has some good pass rushers following free agency, right? Calais Campbell comes over after a strong season despite him being over 35 years old. David Onyemata put up a good number of sacks last year. You added Caden Ellis. Big breakout season maybe coming from Arnold Ebiketie. You draft Zach Harrison. There's a good committee of pass rushers. And Jadeveon Clowney at this point in his career is probably best in a committee, right? I don't think he is going to be a standalone number 1 defensive end for any team anymore. So if his price tag is in Fontenot's range, don't be shocked if Atlanta adds more to this committee. Now, do you guys want the Falcons to sign another edge rusher? Yes or no? At this point, we've talked about it a lot on the show, and I can at least somewhat try and go to sleep and get behind this committee pass rush attempt by Fontenot. We'll see if it works out. They had the second worst pass rush attack last year. They added a lot of guys, but they didn't add any superstar edge rushers. So we'll find out as a team if they can get the job done, and maybe adding more players to that team can help them accomplish that goal. Moving on with more edge rushers here. This one is an interesting one. Dawuane Smoot, a former day 2 pick out of Illinois to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He has spent his entire career, 6 seasons so far, in Jacksonville. Now, last year, he had one of his best seasons. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and 2 pass breakups. The reason why he's still unsigned is, unfortunately, he tore his Achilles very late in the season. And Achilles tears tend to be an 8 to 12 month recovery process, so that would put him on track to return mid-season. And that's probably why no team is calling him, because they would sign someone who wouldn't even be close to playing to the start of the year. But it is 2023. We do see a lot of medical miracles in sports, if you will, where guys make super quick recoveries and no one really sees it coming. He's also a massive dude, I should add. 6'3", 275 pounds. If training camp gets underway and we get a preseason or two game in and Fontenot, Arthur Smith going, hey, this pass rush unit is not looking like it's a lot better than last year, let's give Dawuane Smoot a call and see if his Achilles has recovered well, and we could use his services mid-season potentially. Moving on to our next edge rusher on the free agent market. This is Melvin Ingram. So every time you think Melvin Ingram's career might be dwindling down, kind of, pops off a little bit. He certainly did last year for Miami. He joined the Dolphins right before the season started, and he was a 6-sack player in a time where you thought his career was likely over. 7 tackles for loss, 10 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble. So Melvin Ingram, like the other guys we have looked at so far, is best used in a committee approach at this point in his career. No one should be calling Melvin Ingram to be their number 1 sack leader. But if Melvin Ingram can recapture some of the great play he had in Miami last year, and he wants to stay south and in the warm areas of the country, yeah, I could see Melvin Ingram being a good fit for Atlanta. Robert Quinn is an interesting one because it's all about whether or not it's an even or odd number year. And the good news for any team potentially signing Robert Quinn is that it is an odd number year. And you can see that Melvin Ingram flourishes in odd numbers when he had 18.5 sacks for the Bears in 2021, 11.5 sacks for the Cowboys in 2019, but 2 sacks in 2020 and 1 sack in 2022. So could Quinn potentially bounce back again? If you can find Robert Quinn for 10-plus sacks in June, July, or August, that's going to feel like a big win. And at this point in his career, Robert Quinn is probably only coming back for the right situation, just the perfect circumstances, if you will. Or if some team throws him an extra $1 million and he goes, you know what, let's put the pads on one more time. I guess I can play for the Falcons for $5 million. Now, pick an edge, right? We ran through a couple of edge targets still on the market. Dawuane Smoot, Melvin Ingram, Robert Quinn. Let me know which edge you would like to see the Falcons sign, or it could be someone else, but let's zero in on these 3 players. Now, if there is a signing, you know that we will have you guys covered. Plus, we are so close to 13,000 subscribers. Include us in your Falcons YouTube rotation for absolutely no cost. It's completely free to subscribe. And if you don't like the content, you can just always unsubscribe. So it's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Shifting gears a little bit, let's get away from the defensive line and let's talk cornerback. So Marcus Peters. I'm really just tossing him in here as a PSA that Marcus Peters is still a free agent. Atlanta does not really need a cornerback. They've made a lot of moves so far this offseason, trading for Jeff Okudah, signing Mike Hughes, drafting Clark Phillips. I don't think this team is in dire need of adding a cornerback, but Marcus Peters was one of the best corners when he was at the top of his game. So similar for the other guys we looked at, if his price tag drops, what if Fontenot goes, screw it, let's just get the best cornerback room in terms of depth in the NFL, because we did lose a corner last season for an injury, and we saw how that really threw the entire season out of whack. So if you don't want to risk injury again because Jeff Okudah has not proven to be the most healthy player, Marcus Peters could be an interesting signing for the Falcons as a depth piece. Now, before we get on to the rest of our free agent targets, the 2-shirt combo deal is still going on, and it's still 40% off. Chatsports.com/ATL shirt combo. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. So don't get 1 shirt, get 2 shirts, 40% off. It's one of the best deals out there. Do not regret it. Get it today. Speaking of skill position players now, as we go to the other side of the football, wide receiver Jarvis Landry, Juice, if you will. Longtime Cleveland Brown, before that with the Dolphins, but most recently with the New Orleans Saints, where he was a non-factor last year. Only played in 9 games, and those 9 games were not spectacular by any means. 272 yards and 25 grabs. You are not signing Jarvis Landry to put up 500 to 700 yards. You are signing Jarvis Landry to mentor Drake London, to help this very young wide receiver room and add some veteran experience to a very young offensive side of the football, right? Desmond Ridder, second-year player. Bijan Robinson, a rookie. Drake London, second-year player. Kyle Pitts, third-year player. All these skilled players on your offensive side of the football still under rookie contract for the most part. So Jarvis Landry could come in there and help mentor some of these young guys. Do not sign Jarvis Landry to be this team's 750-yard, 5-touchdown wide receiver. He is no longer at that point in his career, but he can definitely help Desmond Ridder as he continues to progress through year number 2. Now we have some more guys to look at in just a moment, but before we do, the NBA draft is almost here, Thursday night, and we will be live at Chat Sports. Now our draft coverage last year had the most viewers on YouTube, so plug yourself in for the best NBA draft coverage. Both rounds completely covered pick to pick. That is youtube.com/chatsportstv. Subscribe and don't miss out this Thursday night. Moving on to another wide receiver, a former first-round pick, N'Keal Harry. So N'Keal Harry was a first-round pick by the New England Patriots out of Arizona State. Really never lived up to the expectations. Eventually, New England decided to just cut their losses. They traded Harry to the Bears last summer for like a 7th-round pick or something like that, basically a bag of footballs. And he's still a free agent now because he didn't do a whole lot with Chicago last year. Atlanta still needs a wide receiver. I think a signing like this would probably mean that someone either got hurt in training camp or people aren't looking as good as they hoped for in the preseason, and they look at the market and go, N'Keal Harry isn't much, but it's worth bringing in some extra competition. So he's not going to push the envelope very much, right? He's not going to swing the pendulum a ton, but if the wide receiver room is not, living up to expectations for Arthur Smith, maybe N'Keal Harry can come in and try and recapture some of that first-round talent. Now, name a player you would like to see the Falcons sign. Is it one of the guys we went through in today's show? Is it someone else? Sound off for me down in the comment section below with someone you would like to see Atlanta sign. That's going to do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, this is the YouTube cliche portion of the show. Hit that sub button, turn those noties on, like the video, all that good stuff. It just helps the almighty YouTube algorithm.